Many of you are probably aware that I'm a big fan of Walt Disney World. I try to get there on an annual basis. And I'm doubly mad at this pandemic for getting in the way of that. But this is something about me that some people just do not get. Although those who do get it think it's perfectly normal. Let's just say every year I feel the need for a week or two of unreality. So it was quite a decision one year when, as a birthday present to myself, I decided to take the Keys to the Kingdom tour. This is a 5-hour glimpse behind the scenes of the Magic Kingdom, culminating in the famous utilidors. And I wondered, would some of the magic fade when I learned the secrets of how it was done? Or would I come away with an enhanced appreciation for the wizards of Main Street? Now, lest you get the idea that this tour is a dry lecture presentation, it is a walking tour in Florida, outside. So it takes a little dedication to get through the 5 hours. You do get to do a couple of the rides, the Jungle Cruise, and that perennial favorite of mine, the Haunted Mansion. You learn some interesting little facts. For instance, did you know that the rivers in the Jungle Cruise ride are less than a foot deep? And that those menacing crocs and spraying elephants are just heads. Now, the tour guide will pun all the way through, but those are all scripted. In the Haunted Mansion, we got to enter through a secret door using a staff bypass. So we did not have to go through the garden or get in the lines. We got right onto the scaremobiles. We skipped that creaky, shaking room that rises up and then shrinks down on you. It was quite a ride. On the way in, we learned that all of the buildings on Liberty Square are supposedly inspired by an actual building in one of the 13 original colonies. Although for some reason, the Haunted Mansion, which is supposed to represent New York, is actually inspired by a home in New Jersey. Madame Leota, the medium who pops up in her crystal ball, as well as various other spots along the ride, was modeled on an actual Disney Imagineer, whose real name was Leota Toombs. And the grinning ghosts are also modeled on Disney employees. Among many other things that our tour guide tells us are how many dummy corporations were set up by Walt Disney to acquire the Rhode Island-sized property that became Walt Disney World, and how those companies are memorialized now by the names on the upper story offices on Main Street. Disney, knowing that it would become cost prohibitive if people found out who was buying up his land, decided that this was the way to get it cheap. We also learned the story of the Orlando local reporter who discovered the truth, and with just a few lots left to go, broke the story. And those few lots cost almost as much as the rest of Disney World. And we heard how the iconic flight of Tinkerbell from the castle to Tomorrowland every evening is pulled off. It takes a zip line and a cast member weighing less than 90 pounds. And she's double compensated for her nightly ride. And speaking of the castle, it is fiberglass and not as tall as it seems. In fact, all along Main Street, false perspective is used to make the buildings appear taller than they are. Now, the castle is just one of the reasons that Disney World is its own improvement district. Orange County regulations would not permit a fiberglass structure the size of the castle. So Disney got the county to create the Reedy Creek Improvement District, which largely allowed Disney to set his own rules. I assume that Orange County felt that the taxes and tourist revenues were well worth it. And if you take a bus ride out towards the Disney Springs shopping district, where you can find some really great restaurants, you will pass the Reedy Creek Improvement Firehouse just next to the McDonald's. On our tour, we went through a large gate near the Pirates of the Caribbean and discovered where all the parade vehicles hang out and get serviced. The parades themselves assemble in these back lots, and we just visited one of the starting points by Main Street's Town Hall. The climax of the tour was, of course, the Utilidors, the vast underground complex upholding the Magic Kingdom. And the first revelation we got is that they are not underground. Florida's water table sits so close to the surface that an underground complex would not work. The Utilidors are actually the first floor of Main Street. A mound was built up around the first floor, which slopes gently upward to the second floor, or Main Street. Entrance to the Magic Kingdom and areas within are subtly raised on a gradient, gentle enough that most people do not even notice it. So on the tour, we really got just a glimpse of this vast underground, not underground, command center. Indeed, this is where the control rooms for all of the rides and attractions are. It is here where the cast members move unnoticed from one land to another, because the Utilidor is a circle connecting all of the lands of the Magic Kingdom. And the corridors are all color-coded to the land above. This way, you will never see Snow White walking through Tomorrowland. It's also where Disney collects all of the trash. If you ever go to Disney, you notice that you never see garbage trucks or anything quite so crass. Dotted all around the Magic Kingdom are disguised vacuum tube access points where cast members dispose of the trash they collect and send it down to the Utilidor. Here too are all of the administrative offices and the cast locker rooms and the Mouseketeria. It is also the one place in all of Walt Disney World where non-Disney music is permitted. Now, Disney is in the business of magic. It constantly seeks to attract, amuse, and amaze, and it does just that. To start with, the physical environment is part of the show. There are beautiful gardens and landscapes to explore, carefully planned and cared for. For instance, the Garden of the England section in Epcot looks very English, but it is in fact planted with Florida native and acclimated plants, which happen to resemble English flora. And there are water features located throughout to offer some relief from this Florida summer sun. And as we saw on Main Street, architecture plays a major role in creating specific environments. Cast members also are helpful and well-informed and dressed to be part of the environments where you find them. And the shows are highly entertaining, even the ones with educational value. And they add to the feel-good vibe by delighting the senses and pulling off stunts through animatronics and highly effective music throughout the park. And of course, there are the fireworks at night. The displays seen over the Magic Kingdom are actually fired off from 2 miles away. And if you want a truly magical experience, view the show from the 15th floor restaurant atop the Contemporary Hotel. Our tour guide spoke constantly of all the people working in the parks, both in the public spaces and behind the scenes. The vast array of different types of cast members who kept it all running, from the Imagineers to the characters, to maintenance people, to vendors, to security, ride hosts, and so on. Disney actually has one of the best customer service training programs in the world. And it is a Disney axiom that the most important people, the ones who they aim to keep happy, are their employees. The logic is simple. You take care of the staff, and they'll take care of the customers. But to answer my initial question, no, the magic was not spoiled. I just gained a realization of what a complex organization was behind it all. It seems that Disney has discovered this too, as there are now a multiplicity of secret and behind-the-scene tours throughout the parks. And there are even television shows and videos. But by now you're wondering, what has all this to do with UUFP? Well, we're getting to that. You see, I feel that at UUFP, we run our own Magic Kingdom of sorts. And there may be lessons that we can take from Disney about the keys to our kingdom. We may not be anywhere near as large or complex as Walt Disney World, but as president for the last 4 years, I have come to some understanding of how our magic happens and what we need to do to keep the magic flowing. Let's start with the utilidors. As you are undoubtedly aware, we are getting ready for a major capital campaign to fund a new location for the UUFP. The commitment to look for a new home was one of the major goals that I set for my presidency, and that you all made that commitment gratifies me greatly. Unfortunately, the pandemic has slowed this process down a bit. And some people are even asking, why do we need a physical location? After all, we have kept going virtually for a whole year. Well, let me say this. The president, by virtue of the office, gets to see just why UUFP requires a utilidor from which to carry out and support its mission. Our building is, in a real sense, our utilidor. It is the base from which we go forth into the world, and it is the home where we care for and interact with our UUFP family. If, for example, we want to feed the hungry, a well-appointed as well as a well-provisioned kitchen is a necessity. If we want to offer educational opportunities to our UU youth and to help meet the needs of community youth, then we will need well-lit, well-furnished, and well-supplied classrooms. The same holds true for adult education. If we wish to offer port services for the homeless, as well as fun social activities for our members and our community, then large and attractive social areas would be quite useful. And if we want to experience for ourselves and any who wish to join us meaningful and beautiful worship, then a commodious, comfortable sanctuary is a must. If music is important to our worship and our ministries, then rehearsal areas are needed. And then there is staffing. The utilidors provide for the administrative needs and the supervision of the parks. So very much of what keeps the UUFP running is handled by our office manager with our committees and officers, particularly the treasurer. Mailings do not sort and send themselves. Bulletins do not self-assemble or print. Supplies of so many kinds need to be ordered. Vendors need to be dealt with. Arrangements for services need to be made. We must provide staff areas like those found in the utilidors for all of this unseen work. Of course, we also need to provide spaces for the DRE and the minister, who also carry out many duties beyond what the average congregant may see. If we wish to embrace all of these wonderful new opportunities that growing technology offers to us, well, then we need a facility set up with all of the needed infrastructure. All this is to say that, like the utilidors, our building provides support for the institutional mission. And this seems a logical place for the president to call on the congregation to be ready to support the capital fund drive as generously as you can. I've come to think of it as mission support. So what else does Disney's Keys to the Kingdom tell us? Well, I'm struck by the two rides that we got to experience. The UUFP can be seen as a haunted mansion. We are heirs to all the work accomplished by our predecessors. We have a heritage behind us and a history to live up to. On the other hand, we need to be careful not to just try to continue and to repeat the past. We need to constantly update the ride, so to speak, just as Disney does. Then there was the Jungle Cruise. The ride is lighthearted and humorous, and there's a lot of that at the UUFP. But on a more serious note, we are always embarking on a jungle cruise. The future of the UUFP can be exciting and beautiful, but we cannot know exactly what we may meet along the river. We need to prepare for the possible dangers as best we can. And to return again to the ride, we need to make sure that we do not waste too much time being distracted by those roaring animal heads. Two more things strike me as lessons that we can take from Disney. Disney is intentional. It has a mission to fulfill, and everything is directed to achieving that mission. Incredibly careful planning goes into everything, and all details are considered. Our mission might be quite different from Disney's, although I will still argue that it's another form of magic. But the same thoroughness is called for. Good intentions make for a fine starting point, but achievement takes a lot of thought and action. And that thought and action needs to be guided by our mission statement. Disney knows that magic is carried out in the sights and the sounds and even the smells. And yes, there are scents pumped into the air around the Magic Kingdom. Just walk by the candy shop someday. Part of the Disney magic is this show. The staff are called cast members because they are all on or off stage part of the magic show. Now, UUFP is not putting on a show in the same way, but how we present ourselves, how the community sees us, is just as important for us and for our future growth. Every one of us is part of the UUFP cast. And this brings us to the most important element of Disney or any other magic, the people. It is people who make it all happen. And the UUFP needs all of its people to make its magic happen. Disney shows us how everyone from gardeners to musicians to electricians to salespeople to entertainers are important to the success of the whole. Perhaps the best known category of Disney employee is the Imagineer. The Reverend Christine Robinson, the former minister of First Unitarian Church of Albuquerque, wrote an article called Imagineers of the Soul, in which she spoke of the church's role in speaking to the spiritual dimensions and needs of people's lives. She compared the experience of Disney, and specifically of the Mission to Mars ride, to the experience of going to church. For those of you unfamiliar with the Mission to Mars, calling it a ride is completely inadequate. It is an imagined trip condensed in time by the assumption of suspended animation to the Red Planet. It features spectacular images, particularly as you depart Earth and see the planet as one entity. For Reverend Robinson, this was an experience of not only imagination, but also of the spirit, as well as being a very sensory experience in its own right. She expands on the idea that it is for this kind of experience that people come to church. that we need to be Imagineers of the soul, creating experiences of meaning and beauty, not only through worship, but in all of our collective and personal activities. We need to make church about the sphere of the sacred, of the soul. Now, seeing us as Imagineers in this sense calls on all of us to participate, and that is where I call on you here and now. Whatever visions we have, it will take people power to imagine and then create them. The UUFP of the future is being built now by our aspirations and by our perspiration. It is said that the work of volunteer organizations, including churches, is carried out by about 10% of the membership. I think we do a little bit better than that, but in my 4 years as president, I have been struck by how often I was dealing with the same group of people in different endeavors. One of the reasons for the decline of church, and that refers to all denominations, is said to be that church does not meet modern people's needs. Well, church is magic, and magic is made by magicians, AKA Imagineers, AKA congregants. We cannot simply be guests at our own Magic Kingdom. We are also the cast, and yes, the investors as well. We must be the ones who imagine, create, and maintain all aspects of our park and move it forward and constantly make it a place people want to come to and explore. In the Disney film Halloween Town, Debbie Reynolds' character explains to her granddaughter, and it's an aspiring witch, that magic is really very simple. You just wish for something and then you let yourself have it. As usual, the sting is in the tail. Letting yourself have it takes dedication and work. Yes, magic does consist of wishing, that is envisioning a goal. But the Imagineering part is bringing that wish to fulfillment. When you wish upon a star is just the beginning. The UUFP seeks to grow in wonder, connect in love, engage in service, inspire generosity. These are the wishes we tell the stars. We now all need to be Imagineers, engineers, investors, maintenance staff, tour guides, administrators, and so on, creating a church, a denomination, and a world where our wishes can continuously become reality. As Walt once said of Disney World, it will never be completed. It will always grow and change. Amen.